This week's Torah portion talks about the plagues, 7 of the 10 plagues that were visited upon Pharaoh and Egypt are mentioned in this week's Torah portion. It's interesting to note that the Quran only recognizes 9. And of the 9, one of the signs is the stick that turns into a snake, which is mentioned here in the Torah, actually mentioned yesterday. And the Quran, of course, says that it was Moses who threw down his stick, and we know that that's just not true. It was Aaron who threw down his stick, and according to the Quran, Pharaoh sets a time for a contest, and Moses lets the sorcerers throw down their sticks to become snakes, and then he throws down his stick, and his stick swallows up the sorcerer's snakes. The Torah says first Aaron threw down his stick, not Moses, and then the sorcerers threw down their stick, not they were first. And then the Torah says that after Aaron's stick became a stick, it swallowed the others up. At any rate, 7 of the 10 plagues that are mentioned in the Torah are in this week's Torah portion. The question is, why are they divided up into 2 sections? We know that, according to the Kabbalah and Chassidus, the 7 represent the 7 days of the week, and the 3 represent the intellectual faculties of the person. 7 also represents the 7 emotional characteristics of the person. And the other 3 represent the higher faculties, the intellectual and spiritual faculties within the person. Why are they so divided? Why is there such a need to keep them to 2 separate Torah portions? So I present to you the following. There are actually 2 types of Egyptians, and actually 2 types of punishments. One set of punishments took place for the evil that they had done to the people of Israel. The people of Israel had no wars with them. They didn't sell themselves into slavery to the Egyptians. There was no reason for the Egyptians to enslave them. The people of Israel were on good terms with them. They lived together with them. In fact, one of their own helped the Egyptians in their time of need, and that was Joseph. And the whole empire was blessed as a result of him. There was no reason for the enslavement. There was no fight. There was no destitute nation that sold themselves into slavery. There was no impoverishment. The people were self-sufficient. They lived in a separate area. This was unjust on the highest level of injustice. It wasn't tribes fighting with each other and selling their brothers to Arab traders who then sold them to the Europeans, as it was in West Africa. Here, the Egyptians took an indigenous population that was in good terms with them and brutalized them. And so there was punishment for what had happened in the past. That's this week's Torah portion. Next week's Torah portion is for the future. For after you become aware that there is a supreme being and there's justice, and that God will take up the cause of those who have been brutalized, those people who maintain the injustice are punished not for the past, that's already been taken care of, but for the future. And in this group, there were Egyptians who did not participate in the enslavement of the people of Israel. There must have been some nice people, people who belonged to Peace Now, people who were among the liberal wing of the Egyptians, people who were the humanitarians, the educational intelligentsia. Those people didn't think that this was a nice thing to do. And so they considered themselves above this. And perhaps they weren't punished as much as the other Egyptians. In fact, some of the plagues only affected those people who had no belief in and only disdain for the Creator. But those same people did not have the intestinal fortitude to go against Pharaoh to tell him that he was wrong in enslaving the people. No one from Egypt, and there were people who had power because the priests had power. The priests were given their own financial independence. The priests had a certain semblance of their own thing. There were governors who had their own powers. And so even these people who did not enslave the people of Israel, but did not protest, the only ones who protested, they protested because of what would happen to Egypt, but not that this was wrong, not that this was unjust, not that this was unfair, that this was horrible. Just, don't you know that Egypt is lost? That's all they could say. So for those people that did not protest, after they saw the 7 plagues, God punished them for the future. Because when you participate by your own inaction in allowing for injustice to continue, then you're allowing for the future of that injustice. And you're punished by losing your own future. That's why the locusts came and ate all of the produce, that they wouldn't have anything left for the next year to grow. That is why they lost their firstborn children, the one who was going to take over for the next generation. This was showing them that for your inaction, you lose your future. There's a tremendous lesson here. The lesson is, you cannot say to yourself, I didn't do anything wrong, I didn't kill anyone, I didn't abuse anyone. If you're in a state of inaction, where that state of inaction allows for certain things to take place that are wrong, then you're participating in that wrong. One of them, for example, is the present assimilation of the Jewish people. There are a lot of people who go, oh, it's so terrible, people are doing the wrong thing, they're marrying out, they're going to other religions, they have no feelings for their traditions. If you just go and you don't do anything about it, then you're participating in it. If you realize that there's a problem, any problem, you've got to make the effort and participate, or else you're part of the problem of the future, and as such, perhaps you get stuck with no future. That's the message of this week's Sedra.